Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopath. Ever wonder where internet legends get their start? Where myths might meet fact? Well, buckle up for tonight. I've gone on a little bit of a research tirade to deliver you something a little bit different. So settle in by your monitor screens for something that both me and Mary P have whipped up for you. Make me smile. The origins of Jeff the Killer.
Let's just get this out of the way right here and now. I'm not the biggest fan of Jeff the Killer. Maybe some of you are, and that's fine. But I'm not. For me, the storyline seems weak and completely unbelievable, and self-gratifying to an author if that author was a bullied 15-year-old in high school. I can see where the idea gets its popularity, its fame, but it's not from this story. In reality, it's the picture of Jeff the Killer that has been associated with his existence since the original story was written. It's part of a mystery that is yet to be fully explained. Something internet communities can become fascinated by, especially those who enjoy the dark and mysterious. The original image of Jeff the Killer features the nearly featureless, snow-white face of a devilish-looking man or monster, center frame with a dark room-like backdrop behind him. His eyes are wide, menacing, and lacking lids, and there's no nose to be discerned, whether that's due to camera exposure or otherwise. But it's the inhuman and unnaturally wide smile stretched across this figure's face that truly appears horrifying. Granted, it's easy to assume that the photo is heavily photoshopped, but no one knows exactly where it originated from, hence the mystery behind the white face with a stretched smile began. Jeff the Killer. Now, as the story goes, Jeff was a troubled teen, bullied by other kids in school, and to the point of which he was burned and tortured, but he survived. The bleach poured on his skin, combined with his burns, made his skin tight and pale as snow, something that would not actually happen. And because of this humiliation and deforming injuries, the boy's mind snapped. He cut off his eyelids, sliced his mouth at the corners to create an absurdly wide smile, and murdered his family, only to escape into the night and resurface on the internet years later, with only this one mysterious photograph. Again, I know some of you may really like this story, but I just don't. Even the author has come out and stated how badly written and unbelievable this story is, and has since slightly reworked it, but the legacy of Jeff the Killer remains. That is, until you dig a little deeper. In doing some research of my own, I was able to uncover some truths, albeit truths that are more terrifying than any story. About a year ago, information surfaced about the original Jeff the Killer photo, how it was actually part of underground Japanese culture, about 3 years before it was ever made popular in the West. And if you research it for yourself, you'll end up with a photograph that looks very similar to the Jeff the Killer image. With a quick side-by-side comparison, it's easy to see that the 2008 photo is a photoshopped version of the 2005 photo named powder2.jpg. No one is entirely sure where this image came from either, only that it was first documented to be part of a quick TV spot montage for promoting an upcoming film, Ju-on. As there is no image or element in that movie that shares similarities with the Powder 2 image, it isn't entirely clear why it was included. What is known is that after that appearance, the image literally took on a life of its own. In the early and mid-2000s, there was a popular text chain in Japan called Make Me Pretty. The object of this chain was to do anything but. In fact, it was the opposite. Each and every image that was used to pass between people would usually start out as something benign or mundane. But as each participant passed along the image, the pictures would become insanely more and more terrifying to look at. It's believed that the Jeff the Killer image, or Powder 2, was actually part of this chain. However, there's something else more terrifying than the images themselves. It's their curses. It's believed that with each new passing of an image, the picture becomes more and more cursed, and thus must be made pretty and passed along. In order to figure out how these images became cursed in the first place, I started to do the only thing that would make sense. I went to the chain to see if I could continue it on. Now, when I say it was no easy task tracking down these chains, it's an understatement. In the mix between Google, Reddit, and using a few torrents, I was able to somehow locate these disturbing chains. Sifting through the pictures and their accompanying messages was somewhat excruciating and started to make my stomach turn. Some of the pictures were expected and seemed harmless, in fact, but it wasn't until I reached a certain image that things started to feel off. It was just a picture of a man, a plain, simple man. Nothing stood out in particular, but the feeling he gave me, it sent shivers up my spine. The following image was the same one, exactly the same. I even went back and forth a few times, trying to see if I had missed something. Shrugging this off, I continued through to the next few sets of images, but again, the same image of a man appeared. This time, the following image was the same, but things had changed slightly. The corners of his mouth looked as though they'd been photoshopped and dragged, which resulted in a slight smile. Focusing on that image, I found myself unable to look away. The room felt as if it was beginning to move inward, narrowing my vision specifically on that image. I stared at that picture until I finally had to blink, and when I did, the man's head seemed to slightly turn. Which just seems insane, I know, and I could have sworn my eyes were playing tricks on me, but then I looked closer. Chills started running up my spine as the image started to move. The man seemed to be mouthing something to me. He mouthed something. At least, I think he did. Make me pretty, I think he said. I can't believe what I was seeing. I refused to believe it. Believing myself to be overtired, I dropped the topic for the night and decided to get some sleep. But that's when things got really strange. Over the course of the next few days, my nights were filled with fitful unrest. Every dream was a terrible nightmare of everyone around me, always smiling, mouth stretched wide, wider than should be possible. Sometimes the people in my dreams would cut at the corners of their mouths, creating a smile that they did not have to stretch. I found solace in only my waking hours. That is, until my dreams followed me there, too. The people I passed on the street, Strangers on the bus, in the supermarket, everyone. Smiling, grinning ear to ear, always when looking at me. And you'd think that this would deter me in my research, but no, it hasn't. If anything, I'm more obsessed than I ever was. There's something about this picture. I can't describe it. It had gotten to me somehow, and I reveled in it. I tried to deny it, but that was futile, and I knew it. It was only a matter of time. I knew exactly what it wanted me to do. After a while, I began staying up later and later, just wanting to see that smile stretch across the faces of strangers and passers-by. But not everyone smiles. I was walking home through an alley last night when I practically stepped on this homeless guy. I knocked a standing bottle with a clank, and it went rolling across the concrete, causing the man that I had not seen sitting in the shadows to get up and start yelling at me for kicking over his bottle of hooch. I tried to explain to the old man that it was an accident, that I was sorry, but I stopped myself short when his loud shouts towards me were deafened by my own inner monologue. He wasn't smiling. This guy wasn't smiling. I killed that man that night. I picked up the bottle from the ground before breaking it off at the neck on the pavement and lunging at the man with the homemade shiv. I honestly don't think he expected a squirrely thing like me to act so impulsively and violently, but I shoved that glass deep into his neck anyway. The guy jumped back and flailed about like a muppet on fire, trying to gasp out something of potential meaning, but all he achieved were a few wet gurgles and slurping noises through a hole in his throat as he stumbled backwards. When he finally collapsed back into a sitting position against the wall of a building, I took a few steps closer to him, pulled the glass from his neck, and a geyser of blood shot clear across the alley. I had to be quick before he bled out, as the man laid there, gasping at the air like a fish does when it's laying on the beach. I slid the bottle into the corners of the man's mouth and sliced them wide. As the man lay there, staring up at me with ever-dimming eyes, I listened to his final breath, his inner light fading, and a permanent smile on his face from ear to ear. And that's the cycle, a chain in which I cannot seem to escape. I try, but he just won't let me. I can fight off the urge for a few days at a time, but I eventually slip up. I always do. My willpower giving out to something greater, something I don't understand. But what I do understand, finally understand, is what it really wants. It just wants me to smile. It just wants me to smile all the time. So, I finally gave in and did exactly what it wanted me to do. So, before you go digging too deep into this whole powder2.jpg or Jep the Killer origin thing, remember, you gotta ask yourself one question. Is it worth it? Is this what you want to see?
Well, they say a little bit of truth is always said in jest, and that myths and legends always have an origin story set in fact. But it just goes to show you, if you kick over the wrong stone, you might realize that those truths were hidden for a reason. But I sure hope you don't stay hidden for too long and return here next weekend for more gore galore. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.